Welcome to another edition of the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm Randy Zellea from Back Sports Page.
I'm Emerito Rivera from Level 1 Games in Poplar Plains, New Jersey.
And we are here. Another great show today. Shane Taylor from Ring of Honor joins us. And man, this is one of our best interviews. But real quick, before we jump into this, let's quickly recap. We were both wrong about the Royal Rumble.
No, definitely, man. Listen, like I said, we spoke earlier. I knew Daniel Bryan wasn't going to win, but I wanted it. Like I figured I'd throw it out into the universe, and maybe the universe would surprise me and reward me with a Daniel Bryan victory. But it wasn't to be. Edge came out the victor, and now we have to wait to see who he's gonna challenge. Now, at the store, I had a conversation with one of my friends, Dave, and he thinks that Edge will challenge the NXT champion. I disagree with him wholeheartedly, man. Like, you know me, I don't like to put up money. I don't like to lose money, but I was so confident that he's not going for the NXT championship that I offered $5. I said, listen, how about we put $5 on this? If Edge goes for the championship, for the NXT championship, you'll take my $5. That's how confident I am that is not going to happen. What do you think, Randy? Like, because
I don't know. Again, between Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, and Roman Reigns, I think all three would be solid matches.
The matches would be great. I just don't see him going, you know what? I won the Royal Rumble. Let me go for the NXT championship. I don't see it. And I'll be super pissed if it happens and I lose $5. Like, I'm not going to be ecstatic. I'm going to be raging over that for the rest of the year. Let's not start off 2021 with M losing $5. Please. I'm throwing that into the universe. Please, wrestling deities, do not let me down.
Can you imagine winning the Royal Rumble saying, you know what? I'm good. I'll take a shot at the Intercontinental title, maybe take a shot at the U.S. title.
Listen, have we ever seen that?
No, we never.
Did that ever happened?
I think last
year. Why has that not happened?
Last year was the first time like Charlotte Flair won the women's Rumble and she took a shot.
She went down to NXT.
yeah. Just imagine how funny it would be. So you just won the Royal Rumble. What are you gonna do? That North American belt out of NXT, that looks really good. I think I'll go for that. You don't want to see everyone ever go on that, and I hope we never do, by the way. But
you never know, man. Yeah. Listen, 2020 was weird. 2021 seems to be on pace.
Well, listen, we will jump more into this, but first, let's go to Shane Taylor Promotions from Ring of Honor, here with M&I on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Joining us right now from Ring of Honor, the great Shane Taylor. Shane, thanks for giving us some time today, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. But if we're going to start this, you got to give me a better intro than that. You're talking to the CEO of Shane Taylor Promotions.
Okay. I think that's my job.
Yes.
Let me take care of this. This is the CEO of Shane Taylor Productions. The current.
You already messed it up. Give it back to the other guy.
You know what? I'm going to give it back to Randy. Randy, no. You know what? Let me try again. I got this.
Right,
Shane Taylor, the CEO. Yes, I am the sizzle here. So Shane Taylor Promotions. Mm-hmm. He's the #1 contender for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight title. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming on. Listen,
thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're giving us some time out of your busy schedule, and we appreciate that 100%.
Yeah, but thank you very much for coming on. And man, I gotta tell you, a great time to be not only a wrestling fan, but a fan of Ring of Honor. You guys are back and better than ever. And I guess the first question I have from you, from a personal standpoint, when did you really become entrenched in being, with wrestling? When was the first time you really watched it and you got sort of hooked on it? What made you want to get started in the business?
I've always kind of watched wrestling. One of the things that really cemented it for me as something that I wanted to do was when I went with my dad to the Ridgefield Coliseum in Ridgefield, Ohio. And my dad used to work out with the Road Warriors and all these cats. So I'm sitting there watching them lift ungodly amounts of weight and do their thing. And once I went to the show, right, and it wasn't even a match that was like this, had like star-studded, stuff. It was Kerry Von Erich against the Warlord, right? One of the most obscure matches you'd think that you'd see, but the reaction that they got at the end of their match for this double countout, and you've got all kind of shit flying from the rafters down at them, drinks, food, popcorn, everything else. People are losing their minds. And I'm sitting there like, whatever they just did to make all these people that upset, that's what I want to do, right? I'm an antagonistic person by nature, right? I like to push people's buttons to see what they're going to do. So once I heard that and felt that, it was like, that's a wrap. This is what I want to do. I just got to find a way to do it.
And how old were you when this took place? Like,
I couldn't have been more than maybe 9 or 10, if that. You know what I mean? It was just where I grew up. Like, we grew up, kind of starting stuff, kind of testing people, and that's kind of how you figure yourself out, right? So it was nothing more to me than that exact thing, much grander scale. So I was like, yeah, this is sign me up for all of this.
yeah, because it's been well publicized. And you did an interview with Sports Illustrated. You talked at length about your childhood. So
right.
It's interesting to hear that you saw the Road Warriors and you were inspired by that. Is that correct to say?
I was more inspired by the things that they were doing. They're a fantastic team, obviously one of the greatest of all time. And it's more shocking now than it was then, because as a kid, right, you're looking at these grown men and they look like superheroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to understand, especially with the training that I do now, the amount of weight that they were lifting, it's mind-boggling, all right? Like, so you're talking about 45-pound bar, probably a 100-pound bar, 45s all the way to both ends, and then people sitting on top of the fort, like on either side, right? And just wrapping it like it ain't shit. Like, unbelievable stuff. And then you start getting into things and you understand kind of how those things are possible. And you go, oh, all right, I get it. But still, nonetheless, it's super impressive, right? So just to see that kind of stuff and to know like that's the kind of world that you're going into, it was just quite a sight to behold.
But who were your favorites growing up? Like, and also, who did you want to model your style after?
Some of my favorites growing up, you had Ron Simmons, you had Vader, Stan Hansen. I was never going to be the guy that was going to walk around like Orndorff with a six-pack and all that. But I was a big kid who could throw hands and fight, So I kind of catered my style more towards doing that and just going out there and throwing bombs and see who wanted to keep standing. So that's kind of what I've carried into the way I wrestle now, and it's done me well.
So I want to go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up with that because when I did my research, you were training with Raymond Rowe. What was that training like for you when you first got into the ring? Those first couple bumps and just that experience of training, because a lot of people don't realize the amount of time and effort and pain that you have to go through when you first start getting into the business.
It's a shock to the system for sure, but I was one that I'm a very quick learner, and I'm able to adapt to things quickly. So I mean, other than those first few days of just being sore from your body getting used to it, it wasn't really that crazy. Plus, coming from wrestling in high school and college, like the chain and all that stuff and the fluid motion, all of that came pretty quickly. What was the hardest thing for me was the mental aspect of it. And I say that being, I come from a world, especially when you're talking about athletics, where if I work harder than you or I perform better than you, I should get your spot, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm the starter. That means I'm the guy. That's not always how pro wrestling works, right? Just because you're the better performer doesn't always mean that you're going to have the spot. So that was the biggest thing that I had to adjust to from transitioning from other sports backgrounds to professional wrestling. And it was just because you may be the best doesn't mean you're going to be the guy. And that took a while for me to get for me to understand and realize how some of these systems work, how some of the buddy stuff works. But now I've learned how to navigate around that, and now I've learned how to deal with that much better. So you learn and you grow.
Yeah, because there's a lot of politicking and like
100%,
you said, buddy.
100%. And I'm a guy that just says, like, I'm just gonna show up and do my job, and eventually I'm gonna leave you with no choice but to see I've been outperforming everybody you have around me, you know what I mean, for years. And once you see it, and once the people see it, then there's no other choice but to give me what I'm due.
So since we're on when you were younger and your early experiences, was there any one experience that shaped you into the pro wrestler that you are today?
Any one experience that shaped me into the pro wrestler that I am today? No, not really.
Just a bunch?
Because I think as a performer, you continually evolve into a finished product, right? Mm-hmm. You're constantly evolving. So there's nothing that really is something that says, hey, this is who I am and this is my style, right? Or this is what I do. And especially when you go to different places, you wrestle different opponents, it's going to constantly change, right? Mm-hmm. You have your base of things, which I alluded to earlier. And along the way, I've added different elements of what I do, from boxing to amateur wrestling to some lucha stuff here and there, if I decide to break it out. But it completely depends on where I'm at and my opponent on what I do, because game planning and styles make and different styles make for exciting fights.
Yeah, I was about to ask it too, because you just mentioned that you're boxing. I know you trained earlier in your life with boxing. How is the training with boxing able to help you when you started training in pro wrestling?
Oh, it's fantastic, especially the way you move. Guys throw strikes in wrestling just like they do anything else. Learning how to slip a punch, learning how to roll with the shot. You know what I mean? Learning how to footwork, placement, whether or not you want to create distance or close distance. Keeping them within your reach, the ability to hit and not be hit. All of that translates into wrestling, which is simulated combat. That's what this is. So being able to have the wrestling background, to have a grappling background, to have a boxing background, all of that comes into play when you are going into any sort of fight, and if that's a tool that I have that my opponent doesn't, then it's going to be a long day for him, or a short day. You know what I
mean? and also with that too, obviously the other part of the pro wrestling industry is being able to talk on the mic. Can you talk about the first time someone handed you a microphone and said, all right, now cut a promo and talk about this? What was that experience like for you?
Man, it's funny, right? Because people see some of the promos that I do now and they assume like, oh, his speaking has gotten so much better, and this. And I was like, it's like, no, speaking has been one of the best parts of my game since I started. I grew up shit talking. I grew up talking trash. This is what we do in Cleveland. So it was just finally being able to be on a platform and having the opportunity to do so. That's been the only thing. So, and between me and my crew, they've told me for years, like, man, like, talking is one of the best things you do. They're like, the stuff you do in ring is great, but your ability to speak is the best part of your game. So I'm finally at a position now that I'm now being able to showcase that, and people are starting to take notice. The funny part about it is, or rather the interesting part is, I have a stutter, right? And you'll hear it probably as we're doing this, but when I'm performing or when I cut promos, it goes away. It's never happened during wrestling. So one of the best aspects, or one of the best assets that I have, when you turn the cameras off, is kind of a hindrance, and it's just weird how that happens. But whatever part of your brain that clicks on when the red light comes on, it turns on, and we're good to go.
Yeah, because it's like you become a different character, right? It's like an exaggerated version of yourself. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, you turn it up a bit.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, right? A lot of people they'll say that, right? And they'll be like, man, when you're in the ring, you're a completely different person. And I go, no, I disagree. I see it the other way around. Who I am outside of the ring is business me. I have to talk to people certain ways to
Exactly.
make sure I'm able to make the kind of money that I want to make. The closest to who I am in reality is the guy you see in the ring, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, no, it's the opposite. Like outside of the ring, I'm a different person. Once I'm in there, that's me. The performance, and it's not really a performance, but I turned myself down to be able to operate and do business, and then go back to where I want to be once the bell rings.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I've been looking at your social media, and I'm not gonna lie, like I've been inspired, right? So
Thank you.
one of the things I saw in your last interview in the Sports Illustrated was that you were talking about the portrayal of black wrestlers
Right.
and how it used to be. Would you say that that's changed, and have you had a hand in changing that, at least in Ring of Honor?
I definitely think it's starting to change, and I think the awareness that society has to it, as well as the courage for a lot of talent to be able to use their voice now, is making that change.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm one of the voices helping to lead that change, as well as so many others. Especially when you're talking about in Ring of Honor, I think for a very long time, a lot of people, especially some of the African American talent, have felt the way that I do, but maybe just weren't in a position where they felt like they could vocalize some of that frustration, or say some of the things that they've wanted to say. And then they see me come in, and I am a straightforward individual, right? Like there's no point in me dancing around anything. If I have a problem with something, I go straight to whoever I have the problem with, and I let my voice be heard. And I think that seeing me do that, and realizing like, okay, we have somebody here that is willing to bear the brunt of the criticism, willing to bear the brunt of the take those slings and arrows to stand on this platform, I think allows other people to sort of find their courage to speak out and use their voice as well. And if I've got to be the first one to go through the brick wall and get the blood on me, then that's what I got to do. You know what I mean? So that's just who I am. And I think at least when it comes to ROH, you are now seeing a lot of the talent be able to find that voice and use that voice to create more change to help generations after us.
And I have to say, like this, and this is a personal thing for me. Like I was looking at your Instagram, and listen, your words are helpful, man. There's a lot of people like you, a lot of people like me out there, and they read this. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of everybody, because a lot of the stuff you say really touches us. So thank you. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about was the Shane Taylor Promotions and how that came about, because you're the head of that. Like talk to me about that. You got Moses and Quan.
Moses and Khan, yeah. Ron Hunt, Moses, Khan, O'Shea, Edwards. Man, the way that started, right, was really just out of frustration from a lot of the things that we were just talking about, right? One of my goals in Ring of Honor was to win championship gold. There had only been two other African American TV champions up until I won it, and that was Kenny King and Jay Lethal, right? So here I am, grinding, busting my ass every single day, trying to, make history and represent myself the way that I feel as though I should. And I'm watching every champion who's won this belt before me, marquee matches, huge names. They get all the press, all the buzz. So I'm thinking, hey, once I win that title, I'm on my way. I've arrived. And then I do, and nothing. And I look around and I go, okay, when Kushida had this championship, his matches were announced. When Bobby Fish had this championship, his matches were announced. When whoever else had it, their matches were announced. Why is it my name isn't on these cards? Why is it that my matches aren't being announced. I'm the TV champion. In the hierarchy of things, I'm number 1A in this company. Why is it that I'm not on here? Yet, you have no problem promoting every other company that wants to work with us. Every other champion in their companies that want to be here. You've got no problem doing that. But I'm the guy you don't want to promote. I'm the guy who's busted his ass for you, and I can't be marketed. Okay. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it my goddamn self. You know what I mean? And that's what that was. It was cool. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it my way. And that's exactly what I went out and did. And now it's a matter of teaching and promoting ownership. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to beg for a seat at anybody else's table. If you give somebody the power to feed you, you also give them the power to starve you. And why the hell would I do that? Exactly. Right? So I own my name. I own my brand. You know, this is not, and it's showing people that this is in professional, in pro wrestling, right? This is a business to business transaction between companies and their performers, right?
Right.
You want my services, I need your platform. That's what this is. This isn't me begging you for a job. It's not me begging, you know what I mean? Like, this is not anything like this, but this is a mutual beneficial thing that we're going into. And so that's the approach that I take as a businessman, as a business person. And how best do I elevate myself, elevate my brand, elevate my stock, make it as profitable for me as possible, and bring those up around me to show and teach those examples as well. You know, you take pride and respect in your culture, your community, and you bring those up around you that you can help. That's how we all win. It is not a case of I got mine, so screw everybody else. That's not gonna be successful, right? We've seen far too many people do that in other forms of sports and entertainment. And personally, for me, I'm done with that model. That model helps nobody, right? So if I'm successful, then my job is to make sure as many people around me are as successful as I am. I give them the tools to be able to build their own houses and build their own tables. Then they go off and do the same thing and teach others how to do it. And that's how you end cycles.
And Shane, and that sort of transitions into a question that both Em and I were talking about before. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of departures over with Ring of Honor. And it seems like you've become more of a locker room leader. Can you talk about the locker room and how you have sort of turned into that locker room leader, rallying the troops coming back from this pandemic break you guys had?
I don't think I'll ever call myself a locker room leader. I feel as though that's probably for other people to do. I'm a guy who will step up when called upon, or if other people ask, then I have no problem helping. But my thing has always just been to kind of just lead by example and do what I think is right. And if people choose to follow that, then great. If they don't, that's their choice. But a lot of that just comes with a experience and having the will to just stick by my guns on a lot of things, right? So, and sometimes it's the right choice and sometimes it's not, you know what I mean? Sometimes that ruffles a lot of folks' feathers. It rubs folks the wrong way, but I am an individual that I'm going to do what I feel is right. And you're not going to put me in a situation or put me in a position where I feel as though I'm compromising anything of my morals or convictions, right? I'm not going to let you talk to me any kind of way, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all adults. We're all grown. You know what I mean? I have children. I'm not going to let you disrespect me because you think you're in a higher position than me, right? If that's the case, we can just go outside and handle it. You know what I mean? And that'll be that. It's just not how I roll. So I just take the approach that I treat you with respect, you treat me the same, and we're all working towards a common goal. So there's no point in trying to trip each other up.
That's a great way of looking at it, man. And I wish more people would look at it like you, because there's like we said earlier, there's so much politicking and so much backstabbing and so much like a crab trying to pull you back down to the bottom of the barrel. You know, it's like, so I wish a lot more people would think like you. Yeah,
bro. I mean, it's what we could do in this sport if people put egos aside would be fantastic. You know, but until we get there, it's going to be same old stuff.
What advice do you have for younger people in this generation who want to get involved in the business, whether it's as a performer in the ring or outside the ring on the microphone or even behind the scenes? What's the best advice you can give them?
The best advice that I could give them is to have an unrelenting and unbreakable confidence in yourself, right? You're talking to a guy that was supposed to be a statistic. You're talking to a guy who doesn't look like, you know, I don't have the six pack. I don't have, you know, the aesthetic look that you would think when it comes to what a professional wrestler is supposed to look like, right? But yet here I am, outperforming those same guys. Here I am, you know, creating opportunities for myself and others. Here I am on a stage that, you know, people didn't think that I would get to, didn't want me to get to, actively tried to make sure I didn't get to, and yet here I am. You know what I mean? I've heard no a million times. I've heard what I wouldn't be a million times, and you just have to continue to have that unbreakable confidence in yourself to know that whatever it is you're going to do, you're going to be successful, and just stick to that and continue to put in the work, continue to surround yourself with the right people that are going to continue to push you and tell you what you need to hear. And as long as you do those things, you'll be all right.
So there was one thing I wanted to talk to you about before we let you go, because I think we've taken a lot of your time and we really appreciate it. But we had PCO on a couple of weeks ago, and we brought up the show in Madison Square Garden. The fact that you guys were there, one of the non-WWE shows to do the Garden, that was massive. And you were there, you were with Bully Ray in that match. Tell me, what did you feel in the Garden? Like, how was that experience for you?
Man, that's the crazy thing about that is that's one of those things that probably isn't going to hit me as far as like the gravity of it, right? Because that's not something that you set out as a goal, right? Like I never on my list was like wrestle in Madison Square Garden. That was just something that was like, oh, damn, I get to do that. That's dope. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a great thing to look back on because you're like, man, only a select amount of people have ever been able to do that, and I'm one of them, right? So that's going to be one of those things like when I'm all done, kick back on my porch in my chair, you know what I mean, that I'll be able to be like, hey, that was pretty cool that I was in Madison Square Garden, you know what I mean? But for now, man, it's just like, cool, great thing, but let's move on to the next thing, you know what I mean? Let's try to get there again. Let's try to get Final Battle in Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean? So the goal, so the focus shifts to how do we top that? You know what I mean?
And I think you guys could. I mean, I was very upset because, and this was selfish of me, because the pandemic was happening, and you guys were supposed to come to New York, and I'm from New York, obviously. So I'm like, oh man, Ring of Honor's coming to New York. All of a sudden, the world gets shut down. So I was pretty bummed about that. But hopefully, you guys come back to the Garden, or at least in New York soon, because I saw you guys in Hammerstein Ballroom the same year. So I was like really excited about that. But listen, again, we've taken enough of your time. I want to thank you. This was awesome, and thank you from me and Randy. This was an experience, man. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, man. And listen, keep up the good work and keep rocking it, right? And listen, Shane Taylor Promotions. Gotta love it.
We're taking everything. We're taking everything.
And next is the heavyweight title. That's what you're taking.
Yeah, that's what you're taking next. You're taking All right, Shane, thank you so much for your time today, brother.
Hey, boys, thank you.
Shane, before I let you go, Steve, The referee says hello.
Tell him yo. Tell him I said what's up.
I will. Take care, dude.
All right, boss.
Bye.
All right, that was Shane Taylor of Ring of Honor. Shane Taylor Productions. Listen,
How cool. Before you say anything, how cool is that, man? He's sitting there. He's trying to change perception of African American wrestlers in wrestling. How noble is that? Like, I've seen some really cringy gimmicks in the past, and this is somebody who says, you know what, enough of that bullshit. Let's do this right. We're people. I'm going to show another side to this. I commend him. Like, I was so impressed by that. What do you think, Randy?
What I really enjoyed about talking with him was he's not afraid to discuss it. And just on a quick side note with that, it's a real life issue. It's not a wrestling gimmick. It's not something that's just doing something he's being on TV. It's how he really feels. He shares it on social media, and he's real. And I think that's the one thing sometimes that's missing from this crazy world of wrestling is someone who's just real, and it's just not him wrestling, going to collect a paycheck and going home. He's trying to go out and make a difference, and that says so much about a human being. And I felt it was an honor doing that interview because he did an amazing job, and he was sometimes he just didn't know how to react because you weren't expecting that type of content coming out of someone about how he really feels and the change he's trying to make in professional wrestling.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, man, kudos to him. I wish we had more wrestlers out there doing the same thing. Hey, listen, it's not about a caricature. This is who I am. This is who we are. I want to see more of that, man. Pick your fellow wrestlers up. No politicking in the back. I commend all of that stuff, man. I really dig it, and much respect to him.
Definitely. And what I think what's really, really, really amazing too is, Ring of Honor backs them 110%. And they're some people might, the only pushback sometimes people will always say is, you're an entertainer, and sometimes you don't want to go that route. But at the same time, it's good because he's using his platform for the best situation. So this was a really good episode.
Listen, you have not, and I know you're looking at me, Randy. We're on video. Some of you might just be listening to us, but Randy hasn't mentioned my T-shirt. Like, I look like a sexy beast in this new Mike Law T-shirt that I'm wearing that I got today, and Randy hasn't mentioned it yet.
Well, listen, I want to say two things about it. First, it's an awesome T-shirt. I have one too. It's amazing. But I think first off, you and I, if you're watching this video, we now have to redefine exactly what sexy beast means.
Hey, listen, I have already redefined it. As soon as I put our pictures up with these sexy beast T-shirts, I think we look super cool, dude.
Our buddy Colossal Mike Law hooking us up, which is amazing with these shirts. And listen, Em, tell us more about the shirts. Let people know where they can find them.
Listen, I hit up Mike Law. I don't know if they're still available because I warned everybody that were pre-ordered, and I told you guys all, do not hate when you see me strutting around in my cool ass T-shirt. Now, maybe he'll bring out some more in the future because, like I said in that interview, we have to support these guys. We have to support pro wrestling. If we enjoy what they do, then we have to go out there and show it. And how do you do that? By voting with your dollars. Keep these guys employed. Keep them doing what they're doing. Keep them entertaining us, especially like during this crazy topsy-turvy time of COVID. We have to make sure that we show the love and appreciation. Go out, buy some merch, man. And that's one of my favorite things. We talk to these guys, and then we get the T-shirts, and like I said, sexy beast time, dude. Look at this chest. Look at Mike Law right through a chair. So, guys, go out there, buy your favorite wrestlers. See some guys, independent guys, go out and buy their stuff too, man. They got to eat. So let's keep pro wrestling alive.
And if you want some great selection of independent wrestlers merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com.
Yeah, that's another place you can find Mike Law's T-shirts.
Yeah,
so
go check it out. Mike Law, Damian Drake, some of the great guests we've had on the show.
And even Shane Taylor, man. I'm sure he has a T-shirt there too. So go out there, show some love. get these guys some cash, man, and keep them doing what they're doing. Now, one thing I want to touch on before we end this is the fact that I lost my mind this week, right? All right. Do I have to say it? Yeah, I have to say it. Listen, a New Japan wrestling star in AEW. You knew I was going to say it. You knew I was going to mention it. Dude, I lost my goddamn mind. If anybody knows me, I've been waiting for this since AEW started.
Yeah, you're like,
right?
New Japan, New Japan, New Japan.
New Japan. Every goddamn listen, Jericho goes on. He used to do the Saturday night specials, remember? And I would be there, and I'd be like, "Yo, so when do you think, one of the New Japan guys is gonna come up?" Like I'm obsessed, and here it is, man. My day has finally come. Kenta attacks Jon Moxley in the middle of an AEW ring. Randy,
and then tell him what happened afterwards.
Besides me jumping on the chair and flipping out,
when the cameras went off the air,
the exclusive, yes.
So for
when Moxley, it was Kenny Omega. He came up to him. I don't know if everybody saw that, man, but he was like, "Hey, brother Kenta, like Switchblade didn't tell me we'd have some company," and my man Kenta, he's like, "Shut the fuck up! I'm not here for you. I'm here to beat Moxley." I was like, "God damn it, that's my dude!" Like I flipped out. Oh my God, this is this week I have been walking on sunshine, and you guys know I hate the sun, so this is special.
It definitely is special, and what we are going to do is we are going to expand our social media out a little bit and invite people to join our conversation with us. So for something that like this that gets you fired up, let's discuss it through our social media platforms. You can find us pretty much everywhere. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are everywhere.
Yeah, so it's plug time. So let me do that because I wrote it down in this pink pen that I found because I couldn't find my pen. So Instagram, The Cut PW Podcast, and Facebook at The Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.
And we're on Twitter at Cut Wrestling BSP, and of course, backsportspage.com. And guess what? If you want to listen to archives of the show, we are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio Podcast Network. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much every major platform you can think of. And you know what, Em? I will tell our listeners this. By April, if we can get up to a certain amount of followers, you're wearing your Mike Law t-shirt, I think we should have some Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast t-shirts as well.
Hey, maybe, man. Listen, I'm all for it. Let's get this done. I'd like to see how would we design?
Well, I think what we end up doing is we do a 3 designs. We get one with just the logo that we have.
Me throwing you through a plate glass window, barbershop window. I think I like that one.
I think we need to have one with the word Flintstones on it. I think
that. Oh yeah. So guys, I don't know if everybody knows me, but they know, the people that know me know I love to curse like that. I'm a New Yorker. That's what we do, right? So I can't help it. And this is one of the reasons I like the dock, because there's not a lot of kids around and I can curse with impunity. So Randy always has his kids in the car. And, I'm always cursing with Randy. So he's like, oh, it's like the little girls in the car. So you got to watch out. And I'm like, fuck. I mean Flintstone.
So yes. I think what we need to do is have like a head with like a backward hat like you do, and just have the word Flintstone over the mouth.
Oh, Flintstone. Flintstone me.
Also, really quick, want to thank our producer Andrew Fiume for making us look amazing, making us look like $1,000.
Hey, sexy beast right here.
So, Andrew, thank you very much as always. And guys, guess what? Your time with us is over for the week. We will see you next time on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Good night, guys.